Imagine, it is March 30th, 2026.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. You turn on the news, and the White House press secretary is standing at a podium. The sound of helicopter rotors is just deafening in the background.
Naturally.
And they are desperately trying to convince the world that a multi-million person riot, which is actively burning down American cities, by the way, is actually just a really enthusiastic rally in support of the president's golf game.
I mean, it's a phenomenal visual.
It really is. It's this moment of pure, unadulterated political gaslighting pushed so far past the edge of reality that it basically becomes a cartoon.
Completely.
And today, we are taking a deep dive into the exact digital artifact where that incredibly bizarre scene plays out. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad you're here with us.
Yeah, and it is a fascinating piece of text we've got today. We're looking at a document that is nominally dated March 29th, 2026.
Just a few years ahead of us.
Exactly. And on its surface, it presents as a blog post. The title is, quote, Barack Face. These No Kings protests were supposed to have happened in Iran. And then it just says in parentheses, satire.
Which, honestly, you almost need that label.
You really do. And right off the bat, the author, a guy named Paramender Kumar Bhagat, introduces himself with this incredibly specific credential. He says, I was Barack Obama's first full-time volunteer in New York City.
See, that opening instantly establishes a very distinct political persona and a real sense of history.
It anchors you before things get weird.
Right, before the absolute chaos starts.
Yeah.
But before we really get into the weeds of this, we need to lay down a super critical ground rule for today's deep dive.
Yes, very important.
The central article we're exploring today is a blazing, hyper-partisan piece of political satire. It deals heavily with Donald Trump, U.S. domestic politics, international relations, specifically with Iran. So, I want to be crystal clear with you, the listener.
Right.
Our mission today is absolutely not to take a political side.
Right.
We're not doing that.
No, not at all. We are analyzing this purely as a really fascinating piece of futuristic digital literature.
Exactly.
The goal here is to decode how this author constructs an alternate reality. You know, how they use hyperbole, political anxiety, and honestly, most importantly, the sprawling metatext surrounding the article.
The borders of the page.
Yes. To build this deeply complex narrative universe, we're here to look at the architecture of the satire, I guess you could say, not to endorse or, condemn the actual political viewpoints it contains.
Right. Think of us as digital archaeologists. We've unearthed this strange, dense mosaic from a timeline just slightly ahead of our own.
I like that. Digital archaeologist.
Yeah. And to really understand this mosaic, you kind of have to picture a chaotic digital corkboard. Like,
Yeah.
you know the ones in detective movies with the red string everywhere?
Oh, yeah. Total conspiracy board vibes.
Exactly. So in the dead center, you have this blistering satirical news article about a massive domestic uprising.
Okay.
But if your eyes drift even an inch to the margins, you find something entirely different.
It gets so weird.
It gets so weird. You find broken YouTube links. You find embedded, seemingly random tweets from Elon Musk. You find this colossal bibliography of books about, like, artificial intelligence and ancient Hindu spiritual prophecy.
Right next to the political jokes.
Right next to them. And you also find a meticulous day-by-day analytical chronicle of a massive ground war in the Middle East.
It's wild. The center of the page is a joke, but the borders of the page are this sprawling, deeply serious attempt to map the future of global civilization.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the loudest part of this ecosystem, which is the No Kings uprising itself.
Main event.
Yeah. So the article is credited to a Cassandra Doom, and her title is Senior Panic Correspondent for the Screaming Eagle Gazette.
See, that byline alone is just a masterclass in setting expectations.
Because of Cassandra.
Exactly. The author is invoking Cassandra from Greek mythology, the prophet who was cursed to foresee the future but never to be believed.
Right, right.
So pairing that classical tragedy with the very modern, very sensationalist title, Senior Panic Correspondent, it tells the reader immediately that the text you're about to read is going to be apocalyptic, it's going to be prophetic, and deeply ironic.
It's a great setup. So Cassandra Doom reports from Washington, D.C. that this unprecedented anti-government protest has just erupted.
But not where you'd expect.
Exactly. It hasn't happened in a foreign capital. It has detonated across literally every single zip code in the United States.
Every zip code.
Yeah, and the way the author describes the scale of this event is really fascinating because they don't just throw out a large number, like 50 million people. They anchor the fictional scale to real historical touchstones.
Right, to give it weight.
Yeah. They claim these crowds dwarf the 1960s, the Women's March, the Civil Rights Movement, and honestly, my personal favorite detail, they say it dwarfs that one time everybody got mad about the Stamp Act combined.
Huh, yeah. Comparing a modern, supposedly existential political crisis to the Stamp Act of 1765 is such a brilliant deployment of historical dissonance. So funny.
It is, because the Stamp Act, I mean, while it was a genuine catalyst for the American Revolution, in popular culture it's often remembered as this somewhat quaint dispute over paper taxes.
Right, exactly. Like guys in wigs arguing over stamps.
Right, so by lumping it in with the Civil Rights Movement and this fictional apocalyptic event involving hundreds of millions of people, the author highlights the sheer absurdity of the scale they're inventing.
And they ground that massive scale in the bureaucratic misery of everyday life, too.
Oh, the fire marshal.
Yes. The text notes that the crowds are so large, the fire marshal has simply given up and gone home to cry.
It's such a vivid image.
You have the U.S. Constitution basically dissolving in real time, and this one municipal employee is just weeping in his sedan.
He's just done. He's clocking out.
He's so done. And the geographical descriptions follow the same pattern of like really high contrast imagery. So Los Angeles. Sunset Boulevard is described as looking like a Marvel end credits scene, but with more middle fingers and fewer CGI aliens. Which is smart because the author relies heavily on the reader's existing visual vocabulary. We all know what a Marvel climax looks like, right? Total urban destruction, massive crowds, incredibly high stakes. Applying that cinematic lens to a domestic political protest instantly communicates chaos.
And it does it without needing paragraphs of logistical description.
Exactly.
Then there is Chicago. The author writes that the bean is now a mirror ball, reflecting pure, unfiltered American fury.
I honestly think that is perhaps the strongest single image in the entire text.
Really, the bean.
Yeah, because Cloudgate, or the bean, is this passive piece of public art. It's literally designed to reflect the skyline and the tourists taking selfies.
Right.
So transforming it into a distortion mirror for a violent revolution, it perfectly encapsulates the author's theme of everyday American life being warped by extreme political polarization.
That's a great point. And the crowd itself, right around the bean, is painted as this gloriously chaotic, impossible coalition.
Who's in the crowd again?
Okay, you have grandmas wearing their Medjier hats inside out. You have Gen Z kids with neon hair, pissed off veterans, soccer moms, and, quote, at least 3 guys dressed as Benjamin Franklin.
The Benjamin Franklin impersonators are crucial.
Why do you say that?
Because if you attend any major political rally in the United States, regardless of the ideological leaning, you will inevitably find someone engaged in historical cosplay.
Oh my gosh, yes. You always see a tricorn hat.
Always. A tricorn hat, a revolutionary war drum. The author includes this to ground the hyperbole. It reminds the reader that beneath the exaggerated scale, this is still fundamentally an American phenomenon. It's steeped in our specific cultural habit of performative patriotism.
Right, but I have to be honest with you. I struggle a little bit with this level of hyperbole.
Oh, so?
Well, when you write that the fire marshal went home to cry, or that there are guys in powdered wigs literally storming Wall Street, doesn't that actually undermine the political critique?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, like if the goal of the piece is to warn people about executive overreach, making it a complete cartoon makes it incredibly easy for the target audience to just dismiss it as silly. Why wouldn't the author play it straight? You know, like a plausible near-future thriller.
That's a really valid question. But a plausible near-future thriller operates on logic. It operates on logistical realism. Satire of this nature operates on the principle of the pressure valve.
The pressure valve.
Yeah. If the author wrote a grounded piece about, say, 1 million people marching on Washington, it would simply read as a standard, perhaps overly optimistic, political op-ed from the author's specific ideological standpoint.
Okay, I track that.
It wouldn't jolt the reader. By pushing the narrative so far past the reality barrier, by escalating it to hundreds of millions of people and absolute nationwide paralysis, the author is prioritizing catharsis over persuasion.
Ah, okay. So they aren't trying to convince a political opponent.
Yeah.
They're trying to provide psychological relief for a reader who already shares their anxieties.
Yeah. Precisely. It is the exact opposite of a think piece. For a reader stressed by the political climate of the 2020s, this hyper-exaggerated fiction offers a space where the anxiety is taken to its absolute farcical extreme. It's so big that it ceases to be terrifying.
It becomes architectural comedy.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the actual structural joke of the piece, the central irony that triggers this whole absurd uprising in the first place.
The boomerang effect.
Yes, the boomerang effect. The text revolves around this premise that Donald Trump, in this 2026 timeline, had been aggressively cheerleading for protests in Iran.
Wow.
He was posting about the Iranian people rising up, wanting freedom. He even had the State Department pre-drafting victory statements for the imminent fall of the mullahs.
So the foundational joke here is a total subversion of geopolitical expectation.
Right. The revolutionary energy the administration was trying to manifest in Tehran ends up detonating in their own backyard.
Exactly. The protesters in America aren't chanting about taxes or health care. They are chanting, no kings, no crown, no more orange emperor.
It's the ultimate be careful what you wish for scenario, but applied to global regime change.
Yeah.
And the author points out the hypocrisy, explaining that while the president was cheering for freedom in Iran, he was simultaneously, quote, live tweeting his own coronation-adjacent executive orders like a man speed-running absolute monarchy.
The phrase speed-running absolute monarchy is so deeply revealing about the author's linguistic influences.
That's a gamer term, right?
Yes. Speedrunning is lifted directly from video game culture. It refers to the practice of completing a game as quickly as humanly possible, often by exploiting glitches in the system.
Right, finding the shortcuts.
Exactly. So applying that terminology to the dismantling of democratic norms suggests the author views the political maneuvering not as grand historical strategy, but as a cynical exploitation of systemic loopholes.
And the specific fictional legislation the author invents perfectly captures that cynicism. An anonymous GOP senator in the text complains that they warned the president not to tweet "death to the regime" every 5 minutes while trying to pass the president can do whatever he wants act.
Which is just so on the nose.
It really is.
Because real legislation is almost always obscured by these impenetrable focus group titles, the Patriot Act or the Inflation Reduction Act, regardless of what the bill actually does.
Right.
But in satire, you strip away the obfuscation. You name the thing exactly what it functionally achieves to highlight the perceived absurdity of the action.
Well, and the senator claims that when they warned the president about the bad optics of this, the response was that it was just vibes.
Just vibe.
Which sets up the senator's punchline. He's looking out at a burning city and he says, these are the vibes now.
Just vibes is another crucial linguistic marker here. It reduces complex, high-stakes political strategy to the fleeting, ephemeral language of social media aesthetics.
It's TikTok language in the Situation Room.
Exactly. The author is suggesting that the political actors in this universe are governing based on internet momentum rather than material reality.
The contrast between the two world leaders in this scenario is where the author really sharpens the knife, I think. Because on one hand, you have Trump reportedly locked in a secure bunker.
Right.
And he's stress-eating a filet-o-fish, screaming at his television that the protests are a hoax, that they are paid actors, and he's demanding his staff find out if Iran would maybe still riot if he asked nicely.
It is an image of profound isolation and denial. And it's anchored by that incredibly specific detail of the filet-o-fish, which again grounds the hyperbole in known, documented habits of the historical figure.
Yeah, we all know the fast food photos.
Right. So contrast that image of panicked fast food consumption with the author's depiction of the Ayatollah in Iran.
Oh man, yes. So Iranian state television is described as running a 24-hour loop of American cities burning. And the chyron on the screen reads, "Even the great Satan is tired of kings." And Khamenei actually sends Trump a fruit basket with a little note saying, "Thanks for the distraction, big guy. Your move."
The fruit basket is a brilliant touch. It's this mundane, corporate passive aggression applied to international diplomacy.
It's like something Toby from HR would do.
Yes. It completely deflates the grandeur of the geopolitical conflict. It reduces a supposed clash of civilizations to the level of rival middle managers exchanging sarcastic gifts.
Which brings us back to that White House press secretary attempting to spin the situation at the very beginning. Caroline Leavitt claiming the riots are an enthusiastic show of support for a golf game.
Right.
You see political spin every day in the real world, but this
Mhm.
feels like it's pointing at something deeper about how communication functions in this specific reality.
Well, the author is satirizing the terminal velocity of modern political gaslighting.
Terminal velocity, I like that.
It is a commentary on how political communications have become entirely divorced from observable phenomena. The spin is no longer about framing the facts. It is about outright denying the existence of the physical world.
Claiming a million-person riot is a Gulf rally.
Exactly. That is an assertion of dominance over reality itself. The author is suggesting that in 2026, the spin machine has simply broken from the strain. It's snapped.
And the spin ultimately fails in the text. The article ends with her statement being completely drowned out by the sound of helicopter rotors and the entire East Coast chanting, "No kings," in perfect four-part harmony.
The harmony is a nice touch.
It's very cinematic, and the final line notes that the administration finally got the regime change energy they wanted, just with the wrong flag on the t-shirts.
So if we evaluate this purely as a standalone piece of political satire, it's sharp, it's highly stylized, and it definitely achieves its goal of escalating contemporary political anxieties into a farcical climax.
Absolutely. And here's what completely blows my mind about this deep dive. If you laugh at the joke about the Chicago bean, and then you accidentally let your eyes drift 2 inches to the right of the
The
screen,
joke dies.
the joke instantly dies. You are suddenly staring at a meticulous, terrifyingly dry, deeply analytical log of a Middle Eastern ground war.
This is where we have to shift our focus from the text itself to the metatext. The architecture of the page itself radically alters the meaning of the satire.
Let's delve into Operation Epic Fury.
Okay.
In the sidebar of this blog, Paramendra Kumar Bhagat has constructed a daily, almost obsessive chronicle of a military conflict throughout the entire month of March 2026. This isn't just a few passing thoughts or a single paragraph.
No, the sheer volume is staggering. The archive reveals this relentless focus on logistics, strategy, and geopolitical maneuvering.
I'm looking at the list of post titles from the sidebar right now, and the tone is chillingly bureaucratic.
What are some of the titles?
You see titles like 30 Days of Operation Epic Fury, America's Strategic Bind, the Iran Conflict, the Imminent Collapse of the Islamic Republic, and U.S.-Israel-Iran War, the next few weeks. There's even a post referencing a real-world academic.
Oh, Ted Postal.
Yeah, it says MIT Prof. Ted Postal, U.S.-Iran Missile War.
See, including a figure like Theodore Postal. He's a real-world physicist and a defense analyst known for his very critical assessments of missile defense systems that immediately injects a severe level of hard realism into the narrative.
It makes it feel grounded.
Exactly. The author isn't just making up generic war tropes like lasers and dogfights. They are engaging with the actual mechanics of ballistic missile defense, the strategic choke points of the Strait of Hormuz, and unilateral ceasefire scenarios.
Wait, I really need you to quantify this for me, because scanning this sidebar, the scroll just keeps going. How much has the author actually written about this fictional war?
Okay, in the single month of March 2026, the author published 90 posts.
Wait, 90 posts
Yes.
in 31 days.
90 posts.
That is almost 3 deeply analytical essays a day about a global conflict.
It is an incredible output.
We're seeing titles like Iran's Mosaic Doctrine, Preparing for a Smooth Transition, and The Just War Against the Islamic Republic. I mean, it reads like the frantic, hyper-fixated notebook of an intelligence analyst locked in a Pentagon basement.
It really does, and the terminology is highly specific. The term Mosaic Doctrine, for instance. That refers to a very real Iranian naval strategy.
It does.
Yes, it involves decentralized asymmetric warfare, essentially using swarms of small boats to overwhelm larger traditional naval vessels in confined spaces, like the Persian Gulf.
Wow.
Yeah, so the author's deep dive into these specifics suggests a sustained, highly informed engagement with military theory.
But how does that square with the satire? I'm so confused. Are we supposed to believe the author genuinely thinks a war with Iran is going to trigger guys in powdered wigs taking over Wall Street?
Well, the relationship between the two texts is one of psychological counterbalance.
Counterbalance, okay.
Imagine the mental toll of spending 29 days researching, conceptualizing, and writing 90 detailed posts about the horrors and complexities of a Middle Eastern war.
It would be exhausting.
Exactly. The author is mapping out missile strikes, analyzing information warfare, detailing the potential collapse of global supply chains. It is an incredibly heavy, dark, intellectual space to inhabit.
So the satire on March 29th is, what, a cry for help, a palate cleanser.
It functions as a massive psychological release valve.
Wow.
The tension of writing about Operation Epic Fury builds and builds, and finally, it breaks into pure absurdist comedy. The author pivots from the grim reality of asymmetric warfare to a cartoonish vision of the president hiding in a bunker with fast food.
So the satire isn't just a random joke.
No, it is the thematic counterweight to the war narrative. The joke about Trump wanting protests in Iran only possesses its full biting irony if the reader knows that the author spent the last month exhaustively detailing what a real intervention in Iran would actually cost.
Yeah. It fundamentally changes the experience of reading the satire. The joke literally assumes you have the traumatic context of the sidebar,
Exactly.
but the geopolitics and the military theory are still only one layer of this creator's mind.
Yeah.
Because if you keep scrolling down that sidebar past the war logs, you hit the bibliography.
And that is where things go from intensely focused to cosmically expansive.
The books section of this blog reveals a level of polymathic ambition that kind of forces us to completely reevaluate who we think this author is.
We are definitely no longer just dealing with a political satirist or defense enthusiast.
No. Let me break down these book titles because they bounce across the entire spectrum of human knowledge. The first distinct category is AI and technology.
Okay.
The author lists books they've apparently written titled Agentic AI, Set to Explode in 2026, Liquid Computing, The Future of Human-Tech Symbiosis, and AI and Robotics Break Capitalism.
The focus on agentic AI is particularly telling there.
Because it's a specific term.
Yes. This isn't just a generic sci-fi term. In current technological discourse, agentic AI refers to systems that don't just respond to prompts like, say, early large language models, but actively pursue complex long-term goals autonomously.
So they have agency.
Right. By titling a book, AI and Robotics Bring Capitalism, the author is signaling a core belief that this specific technological leap will fundamentally alter the concept of human labor and value generation.
Which bleeds perfectly into the next category of books they list, economics and global trade.
Of course.
They list titles like Marketing Escape Velocity, Velocity Money, Crypto, Karma, and the End of Traditional Economics, and the $500 billion Pivot, How the India-U.S. Alliance Can Reshape Global Trade.
So the progression of thought is clear here. First, AI breaks the current capitalistic structure. And second, new economic models, perhaps relying on digital currencies or this concept of velocity money, must rise to replace it.
Driven by shifting alliances.
Right, specifically emphasizing the India-U.S. corridor.
But then you look at the third category, and it's all about visceral human revolt. It's completely
Okay,
different.
uprisings.
Yeah. You see novels titled The Great Subcontinent Uprising, a book called Gen Z Kranti, which, by the way, is listed as being available in Maithili, Hindi, and Nepali.
Wow.
And another titled Trump's Default, The Mist of Empire.
The linguistic reach there is really remarkable. Translating a novel about a generational revolution, and Kranti means revolution in Hindi and Nepali, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so translating that into regional languages like Maithili suggests the author is trying to communicate these ideas of systemic collapse and uprising across diverse socioeconomic strata in South Asia.
Not just to an English-speaking tech elite in Silicon Valley.
Exactly. It's meant for a massive, diverse audience.
It's all starting to connect for me. The recurring theme of uprising in the books directly mirrors the exact theme of the No Kings protest in the satirical article.
Pieces are coming together.
They are, but I still don't fully understand how one mind synthesizes agentic AI, the Strait of Hormuz, and a global Gen Z revolution.
Yep.
Like, what is the unifying theory here?
Well, the unifying theory is found in the final, most esoteric category of the bibliography. This is where we must unpack the concept of Kalkiism.
Yes, the titles here are completely different in tone. There's Kalkiism, the economic and spiritual blueprint for an age of abundance, and The Last Age, Lord Kalki, Prophecy, and the Final War for Peace.
And there's a practical application one too, right?
Yeah, there is a post listed, The 20% Growth Revolution, Nepal's Path to Prosperity Through Kalkiism. I have to be honest, I need you to translate this for me. What actually is Kalkiism?
Okay, so to understand Kalkiism, we have to look at Hindu eschatology.
Eschatology meaning the end of the world.
Right, the theology of the end times. In Hindu tradition, time is cyclical. It's divided into these distinct ages called yugas.
Okay.
And we are currently believed to be in the Kali Yuga, which is the age of darkness, strife, hypocrisy, and total moral collapse.
Sounds like 2026.
Exactly. It is the absolute lowest point in the cycle.
Okay, so they're using a spiritual framing for the political chaos we see in the satirical article and the war logs.
Exactly. But it goes further. According to the prophecies, at the very end of the Kali Yuga, when evil is at its absolute peak, The god Vishnu will incarnate for the 10th and final time.
As Kalki.
Yes, as Lord Kalki. Traditionally, Kalki is depicted riding a white horse and wielding a blazing sword. He's coming to eradicate the corruption, end the Dark Age, and reset the cycle of time back to the Satya Yuga.
Which is the good one.
Right, the age of truth and purity.
So how does an ancient prophecy about a god on a horse connect to agentic AI breaking capitalism and a 20% economic growth rate in Nepal? Like, how does that bridge get built?
This is the author's true architectural feat. The author appears to be mapping this ancient mythological framework directly onto the chaotic landscape of modern technology and global economics.
They are synthesizing the two.
Yes. In the author's worldview, the sword of Kalki might not be a literal physical weapon. It might be the disruptive power of agentic AI dismantling corrupt labor systems.
Oh, wow.
And the final war for peace. That might not be a mythical battle in the heavens. That might be the very real Operation Epic Fury they are chronicling in the sidebar.
Oh my God, this completely rewires how I read the original satirical article. When the fictional crowds are swarming the streets chanting "No kings," it isn't just a localized joke about American politics getting out of hand. In the context of the author's broader Kalkist philosophy, that American uprising is just one localized manifestation of a global spiritual and technological purge.
It's the Kali Yuga actively collapsing in real time on Sunset Boulevard.
The satire is merely a symptom.
Exactly. The disease is the moral decay of the Kali Yuga. And the cure, according to the author's bibliography, is the spiritual and economic paradigm shift of Kalkiism.
They are attempting to build a unified, holistic theory of the future that encompasses literally everything: war, comedy, code, and God.
It is genuinely awe-inspiring in its ambition.
It is. But, okay, here is the massive contradiction that I just cannot get over.
What's that?
If this author is operating on this extremely high-level, visionary, spiritual plane, why is the actual digital canvas they are using to deliver this profound message so incredibly disastrously messy?
You are referring to the technological friction at the point of entry.
I am referring to the fact that before you can read a single word of the biting satire or ponder the deep theology of Lord Kalki, the very first thing that assaults your eyes at the top of the page is catastrophic digital failure.
It's quite striking.
Right under the date, you are hit with 6 identical grayed-out error boxes. They just repeat: tap to unmute, your browser can't play this video, learn more. An error occurred. Try watching this video on www.youtube.com 6 times in a row.
It creates an immediate sense of decay.
It's worse than decay. The way this author formats the page is like algorithmic camouflage, but completely malfunctioning. You walk into this grand intellectual museum we've been describing, expecting to see a tapestry of the future.
And instead,
the front door is jammed half open, the fluorescent lights are flickering, and there's a random, completely detached sticky note from Elon Musk slapped directly over the curator's statement.
Right, the inclusion of the Twitter exchange is a vital piece of this digital puzzle. Immediately following the broken video links, embedded directly into the text, is a tweet from Elon Musk. It just states, "Ex-Japan posts are amazing." And that is followed by a reply from a user named Rune, who says, "They are really posting on a whole other level."
And that tweet is dated March 29, 2026, the exact same day the fire marshal is supposedly crying in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Look, I have to push back on the idea that this is all a carefully constructed universe.
Fair enough.
Is it possible that this author isn't a grand architect mapping the Kali Yuga, but rather just a guy struggling with bloggers' embed codes?
It's definitely possible.
Doesn't the presence of random Elon Musk tweets about ex-Japan suggest that this whole document is just the byproduct of someone suffering from terminal information overload who forgot to proofread their post?
It is highly probable that the mechanical failures, the broken YouTube links, are unintentional symptoms of platform decay. Blogger, as a platform, notoriously struggles with maintaining media embeds over time as third-party APIs change.
Yeah, link rot is real.
But whether the inclusion of the Musk tweet is a formatting error or an intentional choice, its presence serves a profound thematic purpose.
How so? I mean, it's just a tweet.
Think about your own experience online. Think about your doom-scrolling habits. When you are reading a deeply serious article about global conflict or domestic politics on your phone, is it a pristine, focused experience?
No, definitely not.
Exactly. It is constantly interrupted by algorithmically served noise. A notification about a celebrity, an ad for a supplement, a random thought from a tech billionaire.
The noise is the native environment.
Exactly. The noise is the environment. The author is writing about a society that is breaking down under the weight of political polarization and rapid technological shifts. Having the digital medium itself visually break down, having videos refuse to play, having random tech bro banter literally interrupt the narrative flow, it perfectly captures the reality.
Even if it's accidental.
Even if it's accidental, it captures the chaotic, fractured reality of information consumption in the mid-2020s. The medium has become the message. And the message is that our digital infrastructure is just as fragile as our political one.
That is a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
And that blending of noise, fiction, and reality is pushed to an almost dangerous limit when you look at the final element of this page.
The news sticker.
The actual news kicker embedded right in the blog.
This section fundamentally destabilizes the reader's relationship with the truth.
It really does. Sandwiched right between the prophecies of Kalkiism and the alternate history war logs, the author has aggregated a list of headlines from major real-world publications.
Real headlines.
Yes. And the mix of these headlines creates massive cognitive dissonance. You have a New York Times headline, Special Operations Forces sent to Mideast as Trump weighs next move. You have Vox, the larger stakes of Trump's redesign of Washington, D.C.
And foreign policy.
Right. Rubio, U.S.-Iran war could last another 2 to 4 weeks.
By embedding these specific headlines, the author is hijacking the visual and institutional authority of traditional journalism.
They're borrowing credibility.
Exactly. Those headlines concerning special forces, redesigns of the Capitol, and an impending war, they directly validate the anxieties explored in both the satirical No Kings article and the serious epic Fury logs.
It makes the fiction feel shockingly adjacent to reality.
Too close for comfort.
But then, right next to those terrifying geopolitical warnings, you have the most mundane, everyday reality. You have a New York Times technology headline, Chromebook remorse. Tech backlash at schools extends beyond phones.
Chromebook remorse.
Yes. And a Times of India piece, Japan adopts new carbon reduction targets.
The spatial relationship on the screen is what matters here.
What do you mean?
You have real-world complaints about public school laptops sitting mere pixels away from a satirical account of the United States government collapsing, which is sitting mere pixels away from an intricate theory of ancient Hindu prophecy.
It's all just stacked on top of each other. I asked this earlier about the hyperbole, but I want to apply it to this formatting. When you, as a reader, are subjected to this specific layout, where real headlines about special ops forces sit right next to a joke about a million-person riot, does it change the nature of the satire?
Oh, absolutely.
Does it stop being a joke and start functioning as a literal warning?
It forces the reader into a state of perpetual hypervigilance. The author has completely collapsed the traditional categorization of media.
So.
Historically, you went to the newspaper for facts, you went to the comedy club for satire, and you went to the temple for prophecy.
Right, there were separate domains.
On this blog, the boundaries are erased. It is all presented as a single vertical scroll of vital information. The reader has to constantly recalibrate their critical faculties, literally sentence by sentence, determining whether they are evaluating a hard geopolitical fact, a cynical joke, or a deeply held spiritual belief.
It's exhausting, but it's also a perfect mirror of our current reality. We don't categorize information anymore. We just absorb it all at once in an endless feed.
Exactly.
The Chromebooks, the Ayatollah, the AI, the Benjamin Franklin impersonators, it is all just content washing over us simultaneously.
And the sheer volume of content this specific author has produced is staggering. If you look at the archives section at the very bottom of the page, you realize this isn't a temporary fixation.
Not at all. The archives provide a longitudinal view of this mind at work. The blog dates back to October 2004.
Over 20 years of continuous public thought processing.
20 years, and the frequency of the posting accelerates massively over time. In 2004, the author published 4 posts. A decade later, in 2014, they published 322.
Okay, a steady increase.
But then, by 2025, the year immediately preceding this satirical document, they published 1,333 posts.
That is nearly 4 distinct publications every single day for an entire year.
It's wild.
It is the digital footprint of a mind that is operating at an incredibly high velocity. They're attempting to catalog, analyze, and synthesize every microscopic shift in the global paradigm as it happens.
And it entirely explains the page view counter listed at the bottom. 4,755,876.
Nearly 5 million views.
Almost 5 million. This eccentric, chaotic, glitch-filled, deeply complex universe has a massive audience. It proves that people aren't just looking for sanitized corporate news summaries.
No, they're not.
They're drawn to these raw, unfiltered, cross-disciplinary attempts to make sense of the chaos.
Because it heavily rewards the reader who is willing to engage in a deep dive. The longer you inhabit this specific digital space, the more profound the connections become.
Right, the joke about the fire marshal becomes a commentary on the Kali Yuga.
The broken YouTube link becomes a metaphor for algorithmic decay.
So as we pull back from this corkboard, how do we synthesize all of this? We started our journey looking at a hyper-partisan, frankly hilarious piece of alternative history. We laughed at the image of the Chicago bean reflecting the fury of a nation.
And the boomerang irony of a president demanding a revolution abroad only to have it ignite on his front lawn?
Right. But as we expanded our view to the margins of the document, we discovered that the joke was merely a surface feature.
It was the exhaust fumes of a massive intellectual engine.
I love that phrasing.
Well, it's true. The author is utilizing satire as a temporary release valve, while they simultaneously wrestle with the existential implications of agentic AI dismantling capitalism, the granular logistics of a Middle Eastern ground war, and the profound spiritual reset promised by Kalkism.
It is a vital lesson for any learner trying to navigate the information landscape today. We're so conditioned to just read the headline, skim the main text, and click away.
We all do it.
We all do it. But evaluating a single source now requires you to look at the entire ecosystem it lives within. The broken links, the bizarre bibliography, the massive historical archive. That context is arguably more informative than the text itself.
You cannot truly understand the joke without understanding the terrifying, complex world the Joker is trying to survive in.
This artifact demonstrates that in the modern era, world building is no longer just for fantasy novelists.
No, it's not.
For individuals overwhelmed by the rapid collapse of the geopolitical and technological status quo, world building has become a necessary coping mechanism. When the real world feels incomprehensible, you build your own hyper-dense, multidisciplinary media empire to explain it to yourself.
That is the ultimate takeaway. In a digital world where the monoculture is dead, anyone with a keyboard can construct a 3,000-post universe that seamlessly blends real New York Times headlines, complex AI theory, ancient spiritual manifestos, and biting political satire.
The challenge for us isn't just figuring out what is a joke, what is a prophecy, and what is just vibes.
Right.
The challenge is realizing that they might all be the exact same thing. So here's something for you to think about. Next time you are doom scrolling and you click on an article, don't just rush to the bottom of the text. Take a second, look at the sidebar, look at the weird ads, look at the broken code. You might just find an entire, desperate, brilliant universe hiding right there in the margins.
The context is the only thing that separates the truth from the noise.
Keep looking closely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.